Here we go. Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I hope you're all happy and healthy, doing the things you love with those you love to do them with. It is Tuesday. It's 7 minutes past 3. I can see you in the chat already calling me out for being late, Sean. Once again, I keep you waiting. Keep you waiting. Always keep them wanting more. Guys, I've got together a little eclectic panel to go through the news, views, and clues. Thomas Frank, the Here We Go, is out from Fabritz. We're still waiting for the official confirmation. Alongside that, in the last 24 hours, there has been a number of different takes on the way and the means and the method of Thomas Frank coming in saying, I'll come and work with you lot, but I've got some conditions. And those conditions apparently were agreeable, but there's also rumours that within 5 minutes, that one of those conditions or one of those requests, well, Tottenham might have to go over his head already to raise some money in the guise of Sonny. I've got 3 of the greatest, 3 of the nicest, 3 of the most analytical and well-respected members of the Tottenham community here to chew it over with you. So smash the like button, hit the subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to come and say those to them in a second. But just so you know, at 5 p.m, in an hour and 50 minutes time, we're going to be sending you straight over to Football Inc., where we talk about the roundup of all that's going on in the world of football. It's transfer deadline day for part 1 of the transfers. And there's some big news out today with Chelsea and Milan and Mike Maignan not going through. That's interesting. Have Chelsea got rid of Kepa too soon? We'll talk about that later. Also, Bellingham going to Dortmund in the guise of his brother. Is he going to carve his own little piece of their history out, or is he just going to be the little bro that everyone thinks, you're not quite as good as the prior version? We'll talk about that later. But right now, we're talking about Tottenham. I'm going to start with you, Ian. How are you, mate? Welcome back to the channel. How you doing, bro?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Looking forward to the show this afternoon. Happy days. Calmer waters. Much calmer waters at Spurs now, I think, or we're heading into, so all good.
Did you say much Kyle Walkers?
Calmer waters.
I heard what you said. Just thought I'd jump in there. Good to see you, Luvo. Stay there, mate. I'll come back to you for the question in a second. Ashmatic, mate. Well, it's been a while, bro. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, no, I'm good, man. Thanks for inviting me, of course. But yeah, big yourself up in the panel as always. Loving the chat. Yeah, man, let's get in and make sure you guys hit that like button for Sean. Help to share it, help to grow his channel as well. Good to see you guys.
More important than that is that you guys also get over to Spurs Kings TV. I'll be putting the link up in the chat in just a minute. Luvo_61 on Twitter. Johnny H, well, he's on Football Inc., and the link for that is pinned into the comment section. So make sure you go over there and smash the subscribe. Karma Water Peter says Batu. Johnny, how you doing, buddy? When are you getting out of your car, by the way, mate? When are we going to get rid of that noise?
Well, hopefully soon. Karma Waters, is that a band?
Yeah, should be. It should be anywhere near Tottenham, to be honest.
Hang on a minute. Karma Waters. Ian, Lubo, that can't be right. This is Tottenham Hotspur. There's no such thing as Karma Waters. Just when you think it's safe to get back in the water, the shark comes out and bites your ass. So tomorrow's another day. Let's see what happens. At one stage, Sean, I thought that Thomas Frank could be the first Tottenham manager in history to get sacked before he got hired, with the amount of people going against him. But it's turned now, and people seem to be very happy with the appointment.
Well, actually, Johnny, you say that, mate. I looked at the early markets for first Premier League manager to be sacked next season, and Thomas Frank is on that list. So, typical Tottenham. Listen, let's get straight in, guys, in the chat. Please keep the comments coming. Keep everybody, keep us all engaged, and we'll put up your comments as we go through. Ash, I'm going to start with you, mate, because I haven't heard your specific stance on Ange Postecoglou's exit.
Okay.
And also, obviously, Thomas Frank as the new boy. Less on Ange, more on Thomas Frank, if you like, because we're sort of done with Ange. But give me your overview over the entire sort of last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's quite simple, man. Obviously, the league form's unacceptable. It's as simple as that. But I feel like the cup win was much needed for the Spurs fans. So I think a lot of fans are appreciative of what Ange Postecoglou achieved at Spurs whilst he was here. And it was a beautiful day in Berghvall. And we also had a beautiful parade to follow up for the fans. One most fans will never forget. And the frustration for some fans that are still back in Ange Postecoglou, they're still a bit bitter, which is ironic because I feel like the Ange inners sound like the Ange outers now. You know what I'm saying? They've got that same energy as, you know, this new manager's not going to do it. Like, what's the point? All the other things, all the other excuses that, you know, the Ange outwards that we're making towards, you know, getting rid of Ange, that energy now is transferred. So it's ironic just to see how people are reacting to that kind of news and how they're getting over it. But yeah, enough about Ange. I think the appointment of Thomas Frank, personally, thank goodness he's gone, man. That noise was distracting me.
Oh, he's back. He's back.
Mute him. He's distracted me, man. Couldn't even hear myself speak. But yeah, I think with Thomas Frank, frankly, if I'm to be frankly honest, I think he's somewhere in the middle. We went from ultra attacking, before was ultra defensive, and now we're going to a manager that has a bit of both. He's a bit more adaptable, somewhere in the middle. So it'll be a nice change. And also, in terms of character, people might like him a little bit more, warm to him because he's less spiky. Although, like, the caveat to that would be he's at little old Brentford. So when he's at Brentford, anything he does well is well done, Frank. Even in the press conference room, there's going to be less reporters reporting. Now he's going to have, like, you know, 20 to 30 reporters in there asking him hard questions. And again, when it comes to preparing his teams, to trying to set his teams up, he's not going to have one game a week where he's got time on the pitch to prepare those teams. He's going to have less time. He's going to be thrown in the deep end straight away, playing Champions League football, which he hasn't really done before. So we're going to have to find out if he can survive at this level, if he can live with this type of pressure. So there's so much little nuances that we need to get into with Thomas Frank. But overall, just really quickly, I think he is a good appointment. And apparently Levy had, you know, taken him 2 weeks before, I think, before the cup final. He'd been speaking to him already, went to his house, sat down with him, and had that conversation of him coming over to Spurs. So, yeah, man, it's going to be a very interesting time because he's not going to have a lot of time to bed his style in. But I'm not too sure if he needs a lot of time to bed that style in, because it is similar to what we do with the 4-3-3. This time it's a 4-2-3-1. So it's slightly more pragmatic in a sense. But I think lots of fans don't like Frank or didn't want to give him a chance because they felt, oh, it's a defensive manager. But really, he's quite attacking.
Yeah,
you know, the first 2 seasons he was defensive, yes. But moving forward, like last season, 5th highest scored goals in the league. I think it's the 4th highest amount of crosses into the box.
Yeah.
2nd highest in terms of goals scored centrally. So that would do well for our players that, you know, our wide players. Now they're going to be playing closer to the box, closer to the goal. A lot of fans were complaining about, you know, it doesn't suit Son's style. Son's not an out-and-out winger. Brennan Johnson's more of an inside forward. So now all of a sudden you've got a manager that plays players in their position. You're not having the fullbacks invert as much. You might only have one fullback pushing up at one time. We're playing a double pivot. So that means we're going to have 2 defensive midfielders or 2 midfielders sitting back whilst we have possession. And also with the back 4, sometimes that turns into a back 3. So with that back 3, we are a lot more pragmatic, and only one of the fullbacks, as I said before, goes up, which means we look a little bit more asymmetrical, if that makes sense. So instead of having 2, how we had a 2 and a 1 before, now we're going to have more like 5 players sitting behind the ball. So we're not as exposed through the middle, all down the sides, because the 3 of the centre backs are able to spread wide. And I think Udogie will be the one that ventures forward a lot more, and Porro will be the one that sits back a little bit more. And he's the one that's going to play those forward balls over the top, or those diagonal balls that switch over. So, yeah, man, there's going to be a lot of tactical nuances and switches that we're going to enjoy, I think, on the Frank. But again, 2 games a week. Will he be able to get his message over, his ideas over quickly? I know a lot of Spurs fans don't have patience because of the love of Andrew Postecoglou. So it's going to be a difficult time for him. And I think he's the first manager to start, apart from maybe Mourinho, Champions League football straight away. So
not only that, Ash, though, Luba, I'll come to you, mate. It's the baptism of fire, right? Like I think it's the very first competitive game is going to be the Super Cup. right? It's not an easy introduction for the poor guy, mate. And it's just on that thing about the crosses, mate. Yeah, more crosses than my GCSE English lit paper. There's going to be it's going to be interesting because on that basis, if he continues in that same vein, then he's going to be looking for people in the air to be able to put the ball in the back of the net. And Dom Solanke sometimes massively understood, I think, as a player. But maybe there's more life in Richarlison's career at Tottenham than we think under Thomas Frank.
Well, funny you mentioned crosses. I mean, Brentford had 37 against us at in February at their place, didn't they? So I'm sure that helped the average. I think it'll just be nice to see Spurs set up in a mature, proper, grown-up fashion. You know, he'll set up the team. He'll select the team based with one eye on the opposition as well and how they play. And it's just we're gonna get back to normal. I remember saying on a show in March to Salah, well, look back. I just felt he was gone at the end of the season. The form was getting worse. I just couldn't see how Liga was going to keep him. And I said to Salah, we're going to look back in June at this 2-year period, and it's going to be just like a crazy period in Spurs history. And thankfully, it finished with a fantastic night in Bilbao. And it was, I've never known a season at two extremes ever. And I've been following this team since the mid-60s. This year was crazy. Just looking forward to, as I said, calmer waters, a manager who's going to improve all the players. In fact, to start with, just to get them back to where they were before Ange came. Because take Berghvall out because he was elsewhere before he joined 12 months ago. None of the players have improved, and they should be improving. And I think both tactically and ability-wise, Frank will help them. Frank will improve all of them. I'm excited to see who he brings in, because he always seems to find hidden gems, which he did for Brentford, and he's bringing
helped by the second best data science model in the game, though, Lubo. Right?
Okay.
I'm not sure I've got that same ecosystem quite ready just yet.
Not yet, but you look at the crosses that come in, you look at the set pieces that they don't concede, the goals they don't concede. They're just two small parts.
How about the fact that we're going to go back to a guy who actually likes to extract every minute detail to gain an advantage, i.e. set pieces, right? The set piece coach that got hijacked by Arsenal and went there, and we all know what happened with Arsenal set pieces. One of his other tactical special coaches, almost like American special teams, who came up with this system whereby we're going to overload them in the first few minutes and we're going to try and score a goal. And they scored something like 3 goals, I think, in 3 games on the trot within the first 2 minutes.
Yeah.
It's coming up with innovations. Second of all, although he will play any version from 3, 4 or 5 at the back, the one thing he's going to have to maybe get used to a bit more is the rotation, because he didn't have a big squad at Brentford. Rotation wasn't really his thing, and also, of course, he didn't have Europe, so he's going to have to get into rotating, and second of all, work out what players he's going to need to manage to get a run on the Champions League and in the league. It's not going to be easy. I think his biggest balance, guys, is going to be for a guy who set up his team to not lose, not get relegated, but at the same time send them out to mentally believe that they could win every single game. It's a really tough balance, that, and he managed to do that. This is going to be a different mindset he's going to have to install.
And that's the most. I think that's the biggest unknown for me. There's 4 unknowns for Thomas Frank. None of them. I don't have a negative to say about his style. at all, because I think he's a very, very tactically interesting manager. Johnny, I'll tell you what, if you're getting into your home, mate, I'll put you on mute and I'll see you when you get set up.
No worries,
okay?
mate.
Cheers, mate. I think the unknowns, right, which I think we can all get on board with here, is like, one is he hasn't played 2 games a week. Actually, you mentioned that. Johnny's mentioned that. You've mentioned that as well, Ian. 2 is Champions League football, higher quality competition that he's not used to playing against. He hasn't played against the likes of Munich. He hasn't played against the likes of AC Milan or whatever. 3 is, I think, unless you did it at Bromby. 3 is the egos, right? Bigger players, maybe bigger issues. The people at Brentford, maybe a little bit smaller time, a little bit less ego. That's going to be a challenge that hopefully he'll win over with his calm demeanor that sort of instructs. But I think that's a slower burn. I think if you fell in love with Ange as a player, then you fell in love with his words. And I think that I don't know whether or not Thomas Frank is going to have the right words in the right order to the same sort of skill set. But certainly I think it's a slower burn to fall in love with a manager who sets you up appropriately and that you can go to sleep at night knowing that you've done your homework on the opposition and knowing that you've got to play Newcastle on the Saturday and then whoever, Leipzig on the Tuesday or something. As long as you're prepared and you've had adequate time and the guy is setting you up and makes logical rationale and consistent reasoning as to why, listen, you're not, I'm going to use you for 90 against in the league, but I'm not going to use you on Tuesday. And here's why. I think that we need to go to a back 3 and therefore this is better. And, we'll bring you off the bench in there. I think those things are sort of slower burns for players. And the fourth unknown, is essentially whether or not he can, whether he can convince the best players and the top draw players that we need to come in to bolster the squad. Does he have the draw? How many times in the last 2 years have we had to rely on Ange Postecoglou to pick up the phone to do his sales pitch? Ash Does Thomas Frank have that?
It's a valid point. Brentford are a well-run club, and the owner Matthew Brennan, he's a top owner. He's set a nice foundation for any manager to thrive, and that's Thomas Frank's words himself. You've got Phil Giles, he's the director of football, and you've got Lee Dykes, he's the technical director. So the culture and the environment was such of that where Thomas Frank was able to thrive. And now moving into Tottenham, and you're looking at this particular culture, this type of environment where the manager, like you just said, was loved and adored by a lot of the fans, match-going fans as well. How is he going to be able to compete with that? How is he going to live up to that scrutiny? Is he going to be able to overcome those type of hurdles, that type of pressure, things where, the culture can be quite ugly. Things can turn quite quickly. I was reading an article from Alistair Gold on Football London, and he even mentioned how Ange Postecoglou, when he came in, he wanted to change the culture of the club because he felt the culture was all wrong. But he said deep down, he knew after being here a few weeks that wasn't possible. Do you know what I mean? So as much as he tried to I remember the first few weeks, first few months when, it was Gary Neville and it was Jamie Carragher. And we were through that, that romance period, that honeymoon period where everything was going well, everything was going right. He was winning games, and Gary Neville was like, people were saying you're like Pep, and he's like, I'm just studying Pep one game at a time. He's just making a few, funny remarks and stuff, and everyone was loving Ange at that time, and even Robbie Williams was making songs about him. Anyway, when things quickly turned wrong and things went south, then all of a sudden, Ange realized that, this club, they want top 4. And he said, I don't care about top 4. I want to win things. We keep talking about top 4. I want to make this club into a club that wins trophies. Do you know what I mean? And so that's what he tried at the beginning. That was the very remit. But he knew he was fighting against what the club wanted. And that club wanted that high league finish, that high league positioning to get that Champions League revenue, etc. And that's where the divide is at the moment with most fans at the moment, because people are saying we finally got a trophy, we've got a manager that's delivered on that front, and he's sacked essentially. Do you know what I mean? I still am of the fact of where Thomas Frank, he's got to battle against those fans, and he's got to get Spurs up the league whilst playing, as you said, Champions League football. as well, which is a massive unknown. So yeah, going back to the culture environment, the overarching point is, can he do it? And this is where Lubo and you will probably come in. Can he do it with Levy? Because Levy went from Pochettino, attacking football, and then he went to Mourinho, who's more of a win now style of manager, and then he went to Conte, who's more of a win now type of manager. I'm going to leave Nuno out for a second, but all three managers, irrespectively. Okay. All right, we'll include Nuno, but all right, let's get. All right, my point is, those three managers, then, if we're going to include Nuno, they're all defensive, right?
Yeah.
So it's like he moved from defensive style type of manager to an attacking manager. So he was focusing more on the style of play versus the win now from Conte, right, and Mourinho, to more of a project based with Ange Postecoglou. And to have a project, you need to have that over a certain period of time. So that means you're included and you're bedding in some youth players and you're molding it in with maybe some experience. But ultimately, the style of football is more entertaining and more attacking. So now you have to weigh up, what do you want, like as a club, as a chairman? Do you want attacking football, right, and entertaining football? Or do you want trophies? Because Levy came out and said, we've got our Tottenham back and he wants to win. He was claiming that he's a Tottenham fan and he wants to win trophies. This notion that he only wants top four. He tried to rubbish it and poo-poo it when he came out under Ange when things were rosy. And then now, all of a sudden, he's gone back to, no, I want to go up the league. I want to have that, sustainable club where we're hitting top four or top six and we're in Europe. And that's more sustainable for the club because that's what brings in the moolah. So then now he's sacked Ange, saying, no, actually, I didn't want a cup. I wanted to be at that higher level in the league because that's where you're judged on. That's your bread and butter. And now I'm going for Thomas Frank, which is not, is it attacking? Is it defensive? Where is the philosophy? Where is the direction of the club?
I think two things have to be true at the same time, though, Ash. Like, in order to be able to win trophies that you're competing in every season, i.e. the domestic trophies and the Champions League. Don't get me wrong, the UEFA Cup, Europa League, wonderful, but like you're not gonna win a cup every year. But if you want to increase, like no one wins a cup every year, no one does. And so if you want to increase the chances, the probability of having more cups, you need to be able to afford the best talent because we're working against other teams that have a different risk appetite, a different relationship with money, and a different level of kind of resources. And so in order to be able to at least achieve that, top four has to be a consistent theme, right?
This would lead me on to how we operate in the transfer market this season. I think that's the follow-on, isn't it? So quality players coming in from the start, because typically if you're bringing in a new manager or a new coach that needs time on the pitch to embed their philosophy and their ideas, they need the right players, the right squad in as quickly as possible so they can get their ideas across, especially in pre-season, because that's when you want to get your ideas across. If that's not done before we go out to Asia and we haven't got one or two, I'd say, marquee or important players for the manager, then that's when questions have to be asked. I don't know, Ian, I've been talking a lot, so I know this is your kind of domain, but I just personally think I've seen over the years where we've missed out players before they've gone out to their pre-season, and we've more or less got those players in maybe the back end of July, middle of July, and we're already in our pre-season. They've already missed weeks of training. Do you know what I mean? And like I said, the reason why I mention it more is because Thomas Frank has had notoriously slow starts at Langby. He's had slow starts at Brentford. I think it was 8 wins, 8 losses in 10. Do you know what I mean? I can't remember the stat for his other club in Denmark, but again, notoriously slow starts. So as a fan base now, there's less room for the board or the chairman to have wriggle room where they get this one wrong, because it is 25 years. And I do hear the sentiments where people are upset, like when people have name callings of the chairman, etc. I'm not going to get into all of that. We're just talking about the black and white, the hardcore facts. what we've seen over the 5 years. Yes, we give the chairman credit for what he's done outside of the club and some bits on the football club, like where he's taken Spurs from where Sugar was in terms of making Spurs more of a top 6 team, growing, building, moving into a new stadium. All of that takes time. So we're going to bake all of that context in. But after 25 years now, coming into 25 years, this is where all eyes are on the club, and things have changed, but we'll see how much of a change things are happening, because Levy was the one that brought Thomas Frank in. It wasn't like he stepped away there. He was pretty much involved in bringing him in, even though the narrative was he's taken a step back and Vinay has taken control, etc., etc. How much do we now believe? Do we start to question the trust of what's coming out from the club? Because that's always been a delicate issue, Is it
Vinny's second day today at work. Ian, I think Ash is sort of leading you into your first opportunity to see Hulk smash rage coming out of Lubo. We'd love to see it at 3:00 on a Tuesday afternoon. Do you see Daniel Levy stepping back? Do you see anything changing? And I agree with Ash. I agree with a lot of what you just said, by the way. I think it was a very fair assessment. But where I do agree with him is that this summer is probably the most consequential. Like the what happened after the Champions League, the 500 days thing, for what it's worth, David Pleat went on to TalkSport and said Daniel Levy offered him players and said, "What do you want?" Sorry, he said, "What do you want?" And his response was, "Poch didn't want what was available." And that doesn't necessarily mean Poch didn't want anyone. He just said what was offered wasn't available or wasn't of interest. So, and that's not a tale that's often heard in the Levy out kind of corridors, right? But and I personally have always said, there's context to the environment back then. I think that the worst thing that could have happened to Tottenham Hotspur was to get to the final and not win it, because it fundamentally reset the expectations of the fans at the wrong time as we were walking into $1 billion debt. But we're 6 years on from that. We've won the cup. I think this summer is the most important in Daniel Levy's tenure, in terms of if there's any debate about whether he cares about football, it will be answered this summer.
I fully agree. I think it's time for him to stand up and either behave like a football chairman or sell up and go. I think it's as stark as that. I think he's come out at the club party after the match in Bilbao and said, we need more of this. We've won a trophy. We've got to take it forwards. Well, you've got to take it forward by backing the team 100%, and that comes down to recruitment. So it's not just about how much money you spend on players, because you can't say he hasn't spent over the last few years, but a lot of it has been wasted. He's got to be picking the right people to recruit. That's the key thing, and he's got to have people in the game around him. He had no one on the board that can help him football-wise, that has the necessary football knowledge. He brought Scott Munn in, who is not a football person. His skill sets are in other areas. So you've got Levy trying to build what he thinks is in his world with his money and the limitations that he puts on it, without football knowledge. And last few years since we moved into the new ground, the last few years have been quite poor. We've sort of gone backwards. You look at the years.
Last few years we've gone backwards for sure. I don't disagree with that at all. Yeah.
And so you're hoping that he's got now experience on the board with Vinay, with his Arsenal experience. I think Peter Charrington's been put on the board by Joe Lewis to make sure that Levy behaves like a football chairman, because Lewis must have been looking at his investment and looking at Spurs dropping down the league, and literally every week or every other week there's another 3 million down the tube in terms of league appearance merit money, and Levy took a massive gamble that paid off. It paid off full marks. He took a risk and it paid off, and Ange won the Europa and win the Champions League. But I think, it's one of those where Lewis must have been looking at it. I mean, I wouldn't have liked to have been Levy in a post-season conversation with Lewis if we'd have lost that final, well, we've got no Europes. There's no 70 million there. With 35 million down on the league from last year. So there's potentially 100 million that you just cost me by not getting rid of Ange early. But he pulled it through. Ange got the win. Now's the time sort of coming back, squaring the circle. Ange has got Levy's now got to come through and support his manager. It doesn't have to be a massive fee. If the player's right and he's 5 million, you buy him. If the player's right and if it's Dele at 5 or Van Dijk at 75, just giving those examples of two areas that were both very good buys for the respective teams. Go ahead and buy the right players and pay the right wages. If it means you've got to lift the wage cap, you lift the wage cap. At the end of the day, the big clubs pay the big money for the best players, and they're normally the teams that win the trophies. And what are we all about? Is this a football club? Because I've sort of looked at it in the last few years, and you think this isn't a football club anymore. This is just a platform.
Eben, let me ask this, mate. Before you just quickly, let me ask you a quick question. If the rules were different and the Europa League only ever offered you re-entry into the Europa League and gave you a little bit more money than it currently does, would you be happy winning the Europa League every year and never challenging the best teams at the best level?
No, not at all. Not at all.
On that basis, if your answer then is no, then you have to do what is necessary to try to progress to the next tier, even if that means not necessarily winning all the time. But would you rather not? Would you rather win one Champions League every 10 years or 3 Europa Leagues every 10 years, based on the fact that if you were in the Champions League every year and you had to compete with the Munichs and the Milans and the Madrids and the Cities and all that lot, or would you rather take on Frankfurt every year to lift the Europa League trophy? Like, how is the caliber of the trophy a part of the dynamic, or is it just it's all about trophies in any shape, form, or figure?
Unfortunately, this is where football's. I feel quite sad about football, because it used to just be about trophies, didn't it? And now it's a business, and now it's a question of the top teams. It's all about money, getting the money in, Champions League money. I mean, look at what City and Chelsea are earning in the World Club Championship in the next few weeks, and it's unfortunately football's been like most things in life. Football's been compromised by money, and for me, what I want is to see what Poch did. And he came in. He was very fortunate. He came in. Paul Mitchell was there for the few years before. Mitchell had bought very, very shrewdly. Brought some very good players in. Poch then brought in between them Wanyama, Dele, Toby and Sonny, and they had a very good 12 or 13. Had Levy backed him a bit more and we'd have had 16 or 17, then just maybe we'd have come away with the trophies that I think Poch deserved. You look at it, over 2 seasons, we got those 2 seasons between 2015 August to May 2017. Spurs amassed more points than any other league team, but finished 3rd and 2nd. So those two facts didn't correlate, unfortunately. You'd have thought maybe would have won 1 league out of 2 if you're winning the most points. It didn't happen. So for me, it's about building a team, building foundations, and then being there so you're competitive in all the trophies, and you're going to win trophies. If you've got a good side and you're investing wisely and you're continuing to improve your team every season, then I think sooner or later you're going to start to, the other clubs that do this, that have the money that Spurs have, are all winning trophies. So I don't see any reason why Spurs can't win the trophies as well.
To be fair, it's a good question that Sean poses, because in Europa, you get 50 mil, 40 mil, for winning the competition around that mark. But just for getting knocked out of the Champions League qualification, group stage, it's 80 million. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So you have to win the damn competition for Europa, but then it just depends on what the club wants And then it depends on what fans want. Do fans know what they want? Because I feel like fans are split. You've got fans like Ian that say a trophy is a trophy. You just want to get back to winning trophies. And the reason why you pose a question, would you rather continue to win Europas, is because when you're winning Europas, you're becoming more of a cup team, more of a trophy team. And hopefully you could attract players that way. Quality players, that they associate the club with winning trophies. But on the other hand, you've got the other fan that says, no, league position is more sustainable because league position will meet up or marry up with you having a better chance of winning a trophy in that way. Because as you get better in the league, then you should be better against your competitors. That's what it comes down to. So that's where the split is. And also, if you think about it, and I don't want to make this comparison because winning the Europa Cup was a massive thing for our club. We hadn't done it in 17 years, but a major trophy in 41 years. So I want to just put that before I make this comment. But if you look at teams that win cups in general, you've had Portsmouth that have won a cup down the line, Were they a great team? They were a poor team.
Mate, I've actually did on a video a show I did about, I don't know, it must have been 3 months ago now. There was a show titled, and if anyone's interested in the history of trophies, I did 75 years worth of research, 75 years of analysis. It didn't take me 75 years. It took me about 75 minutes, but to look into the various, the sort of trends around trophies, who gets what in what periods, and the kind of direction of travel. And also things like when people say, yeah, but Tottenham won a trophy. Yeah, but so did Swansea, so did Portsmouth, so did, all those other teams that teams that won them. Wigan was one. Yeah, great shout. I forget the names of the other. Birmingham, I think, and there was another one.
Yeah.
But, if you actually look at the pathway to the final, the pathway to the final and the victory for all of them, the only ones that were standouts that were really, really complex that they sit there and go, fair enough, they did it. Leicester, when Leicester won the cup, they took on some brutes. And I think Wigan, Portsmouth, and Swansea, I think they only played one sort of top tier team, and even one of them was Manchester City, but that was before Abu Dhabi money, right? So you can get very fucking lucky in the cups, Ash, And I'll let you finish. Yeah. Just wanted to sort of jump in.
No, look, anyone can piggyback anytime, man. But yeah, I was just trying to make the point that a team like Man City, and I'm not comparing us to Man City, and we're not Man City, but you can correlate their growth in terms of their league position from when they were under Mancini, even before Mancini, they were underneath Pellegrini, even before Pellegrini, they were under Mark Hughes. Do you know what I mean? All those managers got sacked, but you saw the progression and the level as the money was spent on that club, and eventually the infrastructure changed. They eventually landed on Pep, and then the domination came as they went up that, and you can see it with other clubs, and there's a small pool of clubs in that top six, of which we were a part of. We are part of that big six, and that's where the fans have an expectation of where we should be and where we are in that pecking order and how we should kick on after that. And some people are seeing this particular Europa Cup final and the win as a springboard, as Levy said, as a chance to kind of take advantage of it and get back to where we're meant to be, where we need to be in the pecking order. So that's where the divide is in the actual fan base to say, look, I thought we were about glory, I thought we were about winning cups, and the others are like, no, we need to be in that top six minimum, but we should be really in that top four because that's where we were on the Poch. Do you know what I mean? And it's just managing those expectations, because coming back to Thomas Frank, to be fair, his remit was probably survival, and he's exceeded that. Do you know what I mean? Where he's had a finish of a top 10 finish. Obviously, the season before last, he was 17th, I believe, which is ironic. But obviously, his remit was to get survival, to stay in the league, and hopefully kick on from that. And as you said before, with the data analytics, which he works well with, which him and Lang 20 years ago, actually, they were at Langby, they worked together. That's how they know each other, and they speak outside of Spurs as well. They were constantly having conversations, even non-football related ones. So they go way back. So with Thomas Frank, I think the hope is that because he worked as a Danish manager at the under 16 level, under 17 level, under 18, 19, he's going to be able to work with the youngers and develop them. And even if you look, when he was at Brentford, He helped develop players like Benrahma, Ollie Watkins, as everybody knows about Watkins, Ivan Toney, and each time he lost a player, he had to replace that player and work with them and improve them. And all those players I just mentioned were under 23. People will know about Potter. I forgot his name now. Potter, anyway, he's the fullback. He was under 23. He got Championship Player of the Year the season before. Alex Scott, everybody knows about Alex Scott because he was linked with us, Spurs fan.
Yeah,
he's under
23. Is he still at Bristol?
Yeah, he's had a lot of injuries at Brentford, but he's done well at Brentford. But there's other
Brentford now.
Yeah, he was at Brentford. Yeah, so he came from.
He left Bristol and went to Brentford, did he?
Yeah, he went to Brentford. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah. So Frank had another 23-year-old, or less than 23, sorry, under 23 that he had to develop.
He's at Bournemouth, Alex Scott.
Bournemouth. My bad. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. So,
of course he is. Yeah,
Rico Henry. Then Rico Henry's a player. Then
that's a baller. Rico Henry's a fucking
Rico
baller.
Henry. Yeah, Rico Henry. He had to develop as a young player. Damsgaard, a bit older, but again, he's had to work with players, and he needed time because Damsgaard, the first 2 seasons, he didn't really come through, and then he improved on him, and then now this season, just gone, I think he was the second highest assister in the league from midfield, and I think he had I think the 5th highest amount of through balls through any attacking mid. So hopefully that will transcend into a player like Maddison. You know, hopefully we can see Maddison.
I want to ask you guys in just a second about there's 2 major topics to go. We're gonna go for another hour. If you guys have got another hour, we're gonna go till 5 o'clock, and then we're gonna shift over. So I want to get your takes on 2 major topics, which I think will go, which will carry us over. But obviously, what the transfers that we need, who are the players that are surplus to requirements under Thomas Frank, and then also what players that we currently have can we expect to see massive growth from? Because I think there's we're not short in options in that conversation. Before we do, there's about 1,600 people here, guys. Massive numbers for a Tuesday afternoon. Love to see it. Can you please smash the like button, smash the granny out of it, hit the subscribe if you haven't already. If you are watching and you want to participate in the chat, all you got to do is hit the subscribe button, and then you get instant access. Hang around to get over to Football Inc., where Johnny and I at 5 o'clock are going to be talking about all of the other shenanigans that are happening in the world of football. It's deadline day for the first sector. And we've got a couple of super chats, so I'm going to call out quickly. Keith Edwards, thank you very much for the super chat. If you challenge him for the top 4, then you automatically start to challenge for cups. Yeah, I sort of the extension of that. I think what we're inferring here is that to win the money, in order to have the money to compete, you've got to be in the top 4. So when people think it's like an either or, I think it's an and. I think it's an and thing. I think that, if you might be able to win the Europa League, you might be able to, because you're participating against teams that are just really not, at least in Europe, not able to compete with the level of the teams that qualify for the Europa League and their financial resources from the Premier League. But if you're in the top 4, and then you can stick £100 million down every year, £120 million down. If you get it right, then you're automatically in contention. And then if you get lucky with your draws in the FA Cup and Carabao Cup, and you only have to face 1 or 2 big teams in the semis and the finals, then there's no reason why you can't. Anything can happen on the big day. Thank you very much, Keith. Super Spurs TV. Blaine, how you doing, buddy? Says, afternoon, lads. Am I the only one who is fascinated to find out what Lubo has in the folders behind him? Is it Paratici's transfer targets? Maybe, Lubo. I mean, I think it's probably Levy out receipts, to be honest. He's printed them off just in case he got hacked and he lost access to it. It's all of the various things that he thinks justifies Levy out over the years. What are they, Ian?
Funny actually that he noticed that the folders are not the football programs lower down. Those are, I'm an agent selling fabric, and those are invoices for various mills that I've sold for over the last few years.
Nice. There you go, mate. There you go, Blaine. So conspiracy theory resolved, mate. Resolved. Facts don't care about your feelings. Thank you, Blaine. I really appreciate it, boys. Let's pivot into those topics. Let's start with the outs, right? Like, and what we can hopefully see better from. Like, we're pivoting. Ash spoke about it at the top end of the show, that under the kind of most recent format of Frank, it's been a 4-2-3-1. Previous versions of him were he's very much happy to go to like a 3-5-2 at times or a 3-4-3. Look, we have, and I'm just going to quickly say this, and I'll let you go. But I've got 10 fingers on my hands, and I can roll them off. I did this on the show this morning. These are the amount of wingers that we have at the club, right? Wingers / sort of forwards that maybe be able to sort of do a little bit. Odebear, Brennan Johnson, Matisse Tell potentially looks like he's going to come and stay. You can make an argument that Maddison in a former life was playing off the left. Richalison, Sonny, Mikey Moore, Yang, Becky. There's 9.
Solomon,
10.
Brian Hill.
Brian Hill 11, but he's obviously, I think he's not got any time left on his contract. Has he got any time left on his contract? I think he's done, right? He's definitely going, isn't he? But either way. So that's 10 or 11 players. And then all I hear from everywhere is we need a new right winger. We've got to get Eze. I want to see Mbumo or this guy that we're going to come to in a minute, Semenyo, maybe Tyler Dibbling, Leroy Sane. All of the links right now are to bringing in a new winger or a new specialist creative player that happens to be able to do a little bit of everything, right? And I'm just sitting there going, well, you've got a guy that plays 4-2-3-1, fine, but when he wants to pivot to a back 3 or back 5, he usually doesn't. The sacrificial lamb in that system is a winger, and he goes to a 2 at the top in Mbumo and Vissa. So I'm sitting there going, well, I kind of wrote Solomon off, but I spend so much time with Johnny, and a lot of people in the comment section seem to agree that Solomon's worth another look. We've got 10 wingers. We've already got probably 4 too many. 4 too many. And people are saying, oh, you loan out Mikey Moore. That wasn't what I was hearing last year. I was hearing from the people that are now saying, in order to make room, you loan out Mikey Moore to the Championship. Last season, the season just finished, they were saying, where's Mikey Moore's minutes? So, like, I'm kind of like, I'm trying to figure out how do I square this circle? How do we make room for more, not Mikey Moore? How do we make room for more wingers when we already have 10, probably 4 or 5 too many? I'll let you go, Lubo.
Sure. To show the lack of long-term or even short to mid-term planning, we just mentioned, including if you include Gill, we've just mentioned 11. Although I wouldn't put Maddison and Decky in there, or Richie, to be fair. We've probably
Richie plays more minutes as a left winger than he does as a striker.
Yeah, but he's being played out of position, isn't he? Possibly.
I don't think so. I don't think he is. Well, maybe. I'll let you go. I'll let you go. Yeah,
if you said inside forward, which I think is where I think Frank will end up probably playing Johnson, then I think that's probably I can live with that. But when you've got,
sorry, just to clarify, what's the difference between inside forward and attacking winger?
Well, Johnson, rather than playing out wide, which is where Frank liked Johnson to start, I could see him more sort of 10, 15 yards further in. Because
in a 2-man at the top?
Quite possibly, because if you're going to play 3 at the back, you've got the 2 wing backs, and the 2 wing backs will go wide.
Okay.
For me, that was. But then when you look at other positions, just going off on a slight tangent, but just coming round to, we're not well organised, we're overstacked in certain areas and understacked in others. We've got 6 goalkeepers. We've got 7.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
We've got 6. Forster's gone, so we've got 6 now. We've got 7. We've got 7.
No, Alfie Whiteman's gone as well, or he'll be gone at the end of the month.
Whiteman's gone. Okay, we've got 5. So we've got Forster, Austin, not Forster. We've got Vic, Austin, Kinsky, Gunter, and Keeley. So we've got those 5. We've got 7 centre backs. You got at the moment Romero, Micky, Danzo, Dragerson, Davis, Phillips, and Dorrington.
And Vescovic.
And yes, so that's 8, correct. So you got 8 centre back. You got 8 centre backs.
Not to sort of fine tune your argument here, but can we start the conversation in the wingers spot, because that's where we're at right now. We'll certainly move down the pitch, right? But I'm just saying that in terms of the 11 wingers that we have, and everyone wants 1 or 2 more. How the fuck do we make that work?
Well, I'd push Johnson further in, I'd sell Sonny. I think now's the time to sell him. I think you get maximum money for him, and I think it's a good time for him to go out as a legend, because he has declined in the last couple of years, and I just don't see him coming back from that, to be honest. He's 32, 33. That burst of pace doesn't seem to be there anymore. He was the most clinical striker at one point in Europe in terms of chances and goals scored, and he wasn't last season. I mean, just one springs to mind. Decky hit the post against Roma at 1-0 or 2-1 up, and the ball came out. Sonny 6 yards out, puts it over the bar. Now the old son would never ever. That would have just been slotted in, probably with his eyes closed. And I just think his inputs, output, whatever, has gone down. He's obviously missing his pal Harry, who used to bring him into games and put him in fantastic positions with brilliant passes. So Johnson I would move inside. Sonny I would get rid of. Solomon I'd like to see. Odebear's young. He's got potential. Yang for a loan. Cheerio. Not what we need. Mikey Moore give a chance to. And I'd bring in Mbeumo personally if I could. So I'd have Mbeumo on the right.
I think he's off to Man United for all accounts. Yeah.
Okay. That's how I'd spread it. As I say, Yang, sell out, Yang loan, Solomon back, Sonny sold, Johnson moved inside.
You want Solomon back in as well, do you?
I'd like to see him pre-season. He had a superb season at Leeds. I'd like to see how he gets on. We didn't see him for too long. He played a few games before he got injured, year before last, and he did okay. His figures were pretty good. Goals and assists. He only played a handful of games, but he did okay. So I'd like to see how he gets on in pre-season. And you look at the games we've got pre-season. We've got Arsenal, Newcastle, Bayern Munich before PSG. So we're not playing Barnet or Boreham Wood.
But I'd make the argument, and I made it this morning. And welcome to the show, Sava. I want to get so finish. Let Luba finish, and then I'll get Ashmatic's take on the same topic, and I'll bring you in, Sav. By the way, please get over to all the creators channels. I'll put the links up in a sec. I make the argument that I don't know really what you can really gather from pre-season football, because you don't know the competitive elements. You don't know whether the teams that you're playing against they're going to be experimenting with their kids, whether we are, whether it's never gung ho. It's more of a fitness test and more of an experimentation period. So, I would just make the argument with regard to Solomon, but everyone that's saying, look what he did in the Championship. All right, but there's a reason why the top 3 teams go down go down immediately, right? It's because they can't cut it. And Solomon is a player that benefited from being in the team that ended up winning promotion and winning the title. So I just sit there and think, are you going to get enough from pre-season fixtures to run the rule over Solomon's viability?
It'd be interesting. I think you've got a fresh pair of eyes with Thomas Frank. And he's going to look at all players differently now than Ange did. Everybody's starting, with the same spread, the same flat piece of paper. Exactly. What about Donnelly? You got Donnelly to come back in as well. And where I think this season's pre-season will be different to last season is you had Ange playing people like Donnelly at left back that was just ridiculous. That was just absolutely pointless, waste of time. I think did Skip playing at centre back? I mean, it was just stupid.
I mean, he played Donnelly at left back. I know Johnny always reminds me of that.
Yeah, and he was playing Skip at centre half. So Frank's come in. He's a new manager, new eyes, new players, new team. He's going to be looking at everybody, and these pre-season games are going to mean something. They're going to be important to everybody that takes part in them, all the players. They're playing for their places. So,
let me ask you, mate, do you think that Solomon, I don't know your take on Solomon, to be honest, and I think it's one that seems to split at least some parts of the fan base. Johnny tells me every day that I'm a moron for thinking that Solomon isn't good enough, and he basically predicates it on the fact that that he did so well in the Championship. And I said what I said a minute ago. I just think that the championship is the championship, and the best three teams go straight back down when they come up. And for that basis, you know, I get it that he hasn't had a lot of time in the Premier League to prove it because of injuries. You know, is he someone that should come back in and make the kind of squad roster problems even more complex if you are really trying to bring in an Eze or an Bumo or a Semenyo or whoever else?
Okay, Solomon, championship, 10 goals, 12 assists. Somerville, 19 goals, 9 assists.
It's lovely. Yeah.
It's a tough one because yes, you know, we've seen Solomon in a Spurs shirt, but yeah, the one time he did perform was at Burnley. Burnley got relegated.
Brilliant.
Outside of that game against Burnley, I didn't really see too much. I know the reason why they're not going to keep him. That's why I think this conversation is pointless, is because it's political. What he did on his on his X account. I think the club don't want to be anywhere near that. So I think they're going to just try and get money for him. So that's my particular view on Solomon. I know it's a bit harsh, but it's just like, how can I gauge this player? And both of them played for Leeds. Obviously, one went to West Ham. West Ham finished above us. Obviously, they weren't playing 2 games a week. I know, different club, but
it's a really good. Yeah. It's a really good argument summarized in fucking 6 words, mate. To be honest. Yeah.
But yeah, that's my thoughts. But in terms of like who to go, I mean, you know, I think Ian's got a point in terms of Son. He's been here for 10 years. He wanted to achieve the trophy win. That was his remit. He didn't want to leave. He's loyal, and you kind of want players to leave on a high. You know, fans are quite emotional, so you know, let's let him go on that high. You know, simple as that. So if we can fetch some money for Son, that would be excellent. 30 million plus. That could go towards the kitty. We did get money, obviously, for that Europa. I don't know if that comes this season or if it's the following season, or if the Champions League money comes this season, whatever. However, we should have some funds available. But other players to get rid of,
you get the payment immediately.
Okay, cool. But other players to get rid of, I'd say Bissouma. I would say Bissouma will go. I'd say Fraser Foster. He's gonna leave. I'd say contract is done, so he can go. Alfie Whiteman, again, contract's pretty much done. Sergio Reguilon, contract's pretty much done. Timo Werner won't be renewing his loan deal. That's over as well. So there's a few spaces opening up. It's the point I'm making. Now becomes the hard question. You've got Ben Davies, he's signed a new extension. Has he signed a new extension so we could fetch money for him? Or has he signed a new extension because Thomas Frank wants experience inside that dressing room? So when he comes over, the handover isn't as crazy. He did talk about Ben Mee, how important he was, even though he wasn't really playing. He was an important voice, a talker in the dressing room, someone that talked a lot. People don't really associate that with Ben Davies. I know, I hear that. But I think if it was in the lockdown stadium season, when you could hear them talk, and apparently Ben Davies was the one that was talking the most. I know he wants to do his badges, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just throwing out there as a possible, you know, scenario. But Ben Davies could be sold, is what I'm saying. Ben Davies could be sold. Then you've got Richalison, who wants to stay in London, who's happy, doesn't want to move. Definitely cop blocking, bro. But obviously he wants to go to Brazil, whatever. So he thinks he can still fight for Spurs and all of that. But again, there's been ties with him to Everton. I think that's the most realistic destination. If we can fetch some money for him, that will be good. Then you've got players like Romero. Obviously, he's been heavily linked away from the club. Atletico acting like they're broke. But, you know, we spent money. They spent bread on Chelsea's Conor Gallagher. I think it was like 55 mil. So we know they got bread, really. So we could fetch some money for Romero. I would say 55 mil, 50 mil. And if we did get rid of that, that's a big portion of transfer fee we could put towards our kitty. Then you've got Dane Scarlett. Now a lot of people will be like, no, you can't sell him permanently, but I would say he could go on loan definitely. So and the last player, which I don't think will go, because I think we do need to sell. The reason why I'm saying one in, one out is because we need to make room for that Champions League space, and we've got that homegrown issue. I know it was boring, but then you've got the foreign players issue. So we've got all of our foreign players, they're taking up a space. So that's when the conversation about maybe Benton Core going. I know, again, another person that might have signed a deal, but that could be another possibility of a player going out. And then that's 12 to 13 players there that I've mentioned that you're getting rid of and taking wages off the book that could potentially free up the room for new transfers. That's how I see it going forward. That's just my overlook for players going out. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but that's just my quick overview.
No, there's nobody in that list that you just mentioned that I would be devastated if we sold, including Bentancur. I think he's the one that's most controversial, probably.
He is, but he's the one we could fetch a fee for. And as I said, it could be a situation when you need to find foreign players. The foreign players are stacked up, one in, one out. Could he be the one that we get a decent fee for? Teams want to, get a hold of a top midfielder in their eyes. So, why not do it?
Yeah, it's going to be hard to squeeze to see 12 players leave. I don't think Tottenham have sold 12 players in the last 10 years, probably for a profit or for anything like decent money. But it's interesting, mate. Interesting. Sav, welcome to the show, mate. First of all, how you doing? Second of all, I don't know if you caught any of the conversation or the question, but essentially this second half of the show is now focused on what we can do to give Thomas Frank the best rolling start. The first question I asked was, everyone wants a new winger, but we seem to have 10 or 11 wingers on our books already. And there's a lot of arguments going around about bringing Manuel Solomon back as an example to add to the complexity. I just find the whole thing crazy that, no one's happy with the wingers, but now we're bringing back players that were already surplus to requirements. He was clearly bottom of the pecking order, right? Because that's why he was sent out on loan. So now people are saying that he's got some merit because of his championship performance. Sav, what's your take on it, mate?
Well, hello. How am I doing? I'm fine, apart from these absolute two scumbags in this channel that have completely diddled me and you, Sean, from a number of awards that we should be nominated for, but apparently aren't. Apparently, we're not as cool as Ricky at Last Word on Spurs and Alistair Gold.
Is that the goat? Is that the one for the goat?
Now you brought it up. I mean,
is that the goat?
No. On a serious note, yeah, big up Ash, big up Ash, big up Lubo, big up Sean. Look, on a serious note, look, I agree with you and Ash, Sean, on Solomon. I disagree with Lubo on that. I disagree with Ash's comparison. Listen, Solomon for me is a average winger. Solomon for me, he's got a little something about him. I think he's always going to be a top player in the Championship. I think he'll do a job coming off the bench, maybe in the Premier League. If you can get money for him, I'd sell him all day long. I actually really like Crescencio Somerville, and I think it's difficult because he's come in. He's not had the game time at West Ham he'd like. They've been a mess this season as well. I think it's really tough to judge him against that. It's like that comparison where whenever Spurs are linked with a Dutch player and people go, oh, remember Vincent Janssen? It's like, yeah, all right, but, remember Van der Vaart? So it's like, let's, look, I think we definitely need new wingers, and it's so mental, isn't it, guys? I feel like I'm making this stat up, but it kind of feels like 80% of our last 20 signings have all been wingers. It just feels like we constantly buy wingers and they're constantly not actually at the level we need. I would definitely look, I would be looking at the Semenyos of this world. I've been looking at, obviously, I think we'd like Mbeumo of the world. I'd look at the Grealishes of this world. I think we need the next level up from what we've got. But yeah, I'm with you, Sean. I'm with you. Solomon, for me, I think he's a cameo player. I remember when he was at Fulham, he had that little spell, didn't he, where he kept coming on, had some cameos, scored some good goals. Over 90 minutes, is he that guy that's going to get on the ball and scare the shit out of fullbacks for 90 minutes? Bit lightweight for me. So yeah, not for me, Manuel Solomon. I think that's 15, 20 million in the transfer kit. You're right there.
Do you think? In fact, I'm not sure if I've just done this correctly. I've just put this link in. I don't know if I've just opened up your form, Ash, and I'm not sure if that's unique to the one that I've clicked up. Let me put this link in instead. Just real quick, guys. If you want to, so Ash has got a. Ash, you want to talk about it quickly, mate? I haven't mentioned it. If you want to mention your show coming up.
It's the Spurs YouTube Content Creators Awards. Spurs Kings TV. We're hosting a special award ceremony for all Spurs YouTube content creators, and there's different categories. As Sav has already mentioned, your favorite GOAT, funniest YouTuber, best YouTube channel. We've got many categories. So yeah, if you guys go and click on that link, it will have all the categories. Just get voting, guys, whilst you can. It's going to be interesting, man. There's a few channels doing the numbers, man. A few surprises here and there as well. But yeah, guys, make sure we're gonna be actually doing a show on the 5th of July. So yeah, guys, do make sure you are subscribed to our channel. It should be a good one.
If you're furious that Bugsy Malone doesn't have her own category, then be sure to drop a comment in Ash's next live stream that best dog appearance award isn't a category. It's outrageous. And Sava and I, the only two that would go into it. Frank, bless him, and Bugsy Malone. I mean, yeah, R.I.P. Frank. And what? Wait, but Bugs. Sorry, Bugs. Sava, what's your new doggie's name?
Stanley.
Stanley could be the best newcomer in the canine category.
Best canine newcomer wins it by default. Yeah.
Well, there's the link, guys. Please, it'd be a great show for Ash. And make sure you get over there and vote, because everyone that's in there would be I guess very, very, very proud if they were to win something. So well done, Ash. Great content idea, mate. Let's carry on with the sort of chat. So Savvy, so you're saying you're not really that bothered about the sort of re-inclusion of Solomon. Before we move on to kind of players that are coming in, as Lubo, you mentioned as you came down the pitch, I guess Ash went with who other players that you want to go. Lubo, you were talking about oversaturation almost in various other areas of the pitch. For me, I think considering the fact that we don't know whether or not Romero's leaving, and if he isn't, then I don't necessarily think that we are going to go for another centre back. Do you guys see any other area of the sort of squad being chopped up other than the players that Ash mentioned? Lubo, any other players that Ash didn't mention that you would be okay to see the back of if it meant that we could free up some space?
I think I agree with Ash on Richie.
He ain't going, bro. He ain't fucking going. That geezer has got his feet in the sand. He's like Bugsy Malone when it's time to go home for a walk. No, I ain't going. And you got to drag her by the lead. Come on, Bugs. It's time to go. Time to go, Richie. Time to go. Good girl.
I'd like to see how Bissouma does with Frank pre-season before any decision is made there. Do we need all three, Bissouma, Sarr and Bentancur? Probably not.
Definitely not. There's space for one of them to go. I'm an advocate of Sarr. I was like, you know what, Pape Sarr, but he's got unique value, mate. There's not many players that can do what Daddy Sarr can do. His long legs, his ability to cover ground. If he could calm down with his pass, and this is where the kind of the coach mindset comes in. Sav, I know you talk about it all the time, like bringing in a coach now to be able to get more out of the players. Lubo, again, sorry, I'll let you get back to answering your question, but to extend that, is there also a few players that you kind of go, well, I'm not sure about them, but actually I'd love to see what they would become with the right coaching?
Well, I don't think any of the players benefited from the coaching for the last 2 years. So I'm looking forward to seeing how all the players progress under Frank and his team. And I think, come mid-August, I mean, it's only it's a couple of months. There's only a few first team matches to be played. But I'm sure Frank will have more of an idea then, because he will know the sort of players he wants for his system. Then sort of mid-August, there'll be that question will be an interesting question in mid-August, Sean. Just before we start the league, who would you be in the next 2 weeks of the transfer window? Who would you be bringing in now? Which gaps are there in the squad? Who do you think should be going?
If I was to be totally ruthless, I would say Dragushin. I would get rid of him. I know we're asking that question of what player would you like to see with coaching if he would improve or not. I would say if you're looking for another centre back and he's a player that could fetch a fee, remember, Dragusin played in the back three, number one. He's a good box defender. He's good aerially. With the ball at his feet, could I see improvement? Yes, because he's still young. But if I was being ruthless, he would be the centre back. I would probably move on to get a decent amount of money to then find another centre back. If I was gonna if we're moving on Romero as well. So that's just me being like ultra
So Ash, would you get rid of both Romero and Dragusin? Dragusin, you're not going to be able to get shots off.
Yes, I would. The reason being is because I would say I would favour a left-sided centre back more so. I think that's what we need because Micky van der Ven, in my opinion, he's the one that's more likely to be injured. So if I got enough funds, I would prioritise and get in a centre back for the left side, and then you've got Danso there, and then I'll buy potentially another right-sided centre back. Only because with Dragusin, I'm not sure of his on-the-ball ability. I'm not sure if he can improve on that. That's my worry. Huh?
He's out till December, so you're going to have a problem moving him on.
Yeah. Same with Maddison, to be honest. Same with Decky. So if you had intentions to sell any of those guys, you're not going to be.
That's right. Decky's out till the end of the year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Maddison may be back for the league season, but he's not going to have a pre-season behind him because of the injury. There's those things to consider as well. So you're too short for the first 4 months of the season.
It makes it easier to pick a Champions League squad, though. Because the Champions League squad is a little bit saturated with foreign players, and you kind of go, well, I can leave Decky and Radu Dragusin out. You can't sell them, but you basically bench them for, not even bench them, sort of squad roster them for the rest. And it's super important, right? Sab, I'll come to you as a first one on this one. I titled the show "Thomas Frank's first new signings revealed." It looks like Mbeumo's done. He's going to United. That's what Fabrizio said. Apparently, what I saw this morning, all roads point to. Well, let me caveat this. There was articles out last night that said that Thomas Frank had the meetings and basically agreed with Tottenham that they spoke about not just the plan, not just the targets, but the transfer strategies, the transfer budget, where was the identified targets, who was willing to be gone, etc., yada, yada, yada. And that there was agreement in principle that whilst he wasn't going to be leading the search, that he was a part of those conversations, which is what you'd expect, right, under Paratici or anyone else. If Semenyo is the number one target right now, is Semenyo a guy? I mean, I fucking love him. I think he's actually above Mbeumo for me in maybe not in experience, maybe not in guaranteed outcomes because you know what you've got with Mbeumo, but in terms of like, I've watched Semenyo so much on the Y Scout, got into him in detail. He's a left winger with a right foot. He's not a right footer. He is a 2-footed player that can happily play off the right hand side, happily play off the left, happily take him on in the midfield. He's got the bodywork strength where he does the Decky elbow, where he leans into players and they just can't handle it. And he's got this ability to strike a ball from 22 yards, Sab. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but he hits it so pure that like it doesn't look like someone's putting their foot through it. It looks like it's placed into the corner. And I think he's a wonderful, wonderful player.
I like Mbeumo, Semenyo. Sorry, I like him. I think again he's a massive upgrade on what we've got. I honestly think our wingers are really poor. Like we've got really, really poor wingers that don't have good output, and not just the output. They don't scare fullbacks. They don't get on the ball and out-muscle them, outrun them. Knock it past them and go around the other side. When I watch Bournemouth play, Semenyo's powerful. He's a worker. He'll run at his player. He'll drive into the box. He'll try and get shots away. The problem I think we're going to have with this is not so much could we tempt Semenyo from Bournemouth. I think it's going to be that Bournemouth are currently being absolutely decimated.
Yeah,
they're losing. They've lost Kepa. They've lost Hewson. They've lost Kirkhead is on his way to Liverpool. Zabanyi is wanted by PSG.
Kluivert's wanted. Yeah.
Kluivert's wanted. So I think the problem that you're going to have is I think they're going to smack a big fee on him. And I think I've seen this morning that they're talking about £70 million. If Spurs are going to buy anyone for £70 million, I want that player to be Eze. I want that to be the game changer. However, if we're going to remove that from one side, I like Semenyo. I get him on the wing. And I think he's a good player. I think he'll do a really good job. I think he works hard tracking back as well. He's been very well coached by Iriola. And I think Frank could probably take that on a bit and get more output from him. But I think we've got to get to the stage where we have a difference. Like Brennan Johnson, who plays out there. It's so difficult, guys, because I think you'll all probably agree with what I'm about to say. Maybe not. Maybe not, knowing some of you three. Maybe not. Brennan Johnson is absolutely brilliant at what Brennan Johnson does, which is ghost into the 6-yard, 12-yard, from goal and get his goal. I can't knock him for that. He's brilliant at it. However, as an actual wide man, he offers absolutely nothing in terms of troubling a left back. He offers nothing in terms of whipping really good balls in, beating a man, dinking balls to the back. He doesn't offer any of that. So I think we need somebody that does that, somebody that can beat a man, somebody that, when a winger gets a ball, and look at our last game of the season. Every time Matoma got the ball when he came on, Porro shit himself. Every time Matoma got the ball, it was like, he's going to take him. Either on the outside, on the inside. We don't have a winger like that. And I really think we need a player like that. I like him. I know everyone's so fixated on Semenyo. Let me get this the right way around this time. On Mbeumo, I think it's a bit too late for Mbeumo. He's a Man United fan. He wants to go to Man United. Apparently, he's turned down Newcastle and Arsenal. Can't see why he would then not turn down Spurs. So I like him. Will we pay 70 million for him? I can't see it, but I like him. I think he's a good footballer who gives us options. I like him. Doesn't always have to be a star name. But I can't see it.
Yeah. So we're linked with I'm looking at it now. A guy called Nen. He plays for RB. The Austrian.
Sorry?
A guy called Nen. A guy called Nene Salzburg. Yeah, RB Salzburg, Austrian team. He's a wide player, and just for numbers wise, he's got like 14 goals in that league. I know it's a the division below really the top 5 leagues, but I know that Langer looks at the data and he's one on his list. Another one is Alanga as well, from Nottingham Forest.
I'm just seeing something out there. The Nottingham Forest aren't going to accept anything less than 80 million quid for Alanga. Gee whiz.
Yeah. Oof. So yeah,
this guy, Douglas Nen.
That's it. Yeah, that's right. He can operate on the left, can play a cam on the right. But if you're looking at Premier League, what we need, you're looking at physicality. You're going to get that from Semenyo all day long in terms of spatial awareness, in terms of like protecting the ball. And I think with Spurs, we need a player that can retain possession for us when we're trying to build out from the back. I think that's been a huge issue with the players like Son. I know, Sean, you like Tel, I think. But I think with Tel, his link-up play, for me, his link-up play needs work. So he needs to develop that. His hold-up play needs work as well. So when we're in a wide area...
And his shooting, and his finishing, and his ability to beat a man.
But isn't that what a coach does, mate? Isn't that what a coach does?
But I think what David's trying to say is when we're going into the Champions League, and remember I said at the start of the show that Thomas Frank hasn't got long. He's going to need that type of player. That I'll tell you, a player I do like from Monaco is called Akalouche. He's a French young kid. He can play wide and also play in the cam as well. But the reason why I like him, he's slightly different to Semenyo, is because he has vision. He's someone that, I'm not saying Semenyo doesn't play with his head up, because he does, but in terms of like passing through the lines, having that playmaker type of ability, it's good to have a winger, because a winger, you've got P&P. In Premier League, you need that pace and power, and that's what Semenyo gives you. But with Akalouche, slightly different, where he can find runners, he can find people that are maybe like a Brennan Johnson, if you're going to play Brennan Johnson in the pocket, or not in the pocket, but running into the box, because with Thomas Frank's Brentford, a lot of the forwards, they attack the central areas. They like to run in behind. And so a player like Johnson, if you had Akalush, he could get his head up when Maddison's injured, because Maddison won't last the whole of the game, especially now we're doing Champions League and Premier League. Maddison will get injured at some point. You need a playmaker, in my opinion. And I wouldn't be mad if we had a wide playmaker, or even if it was a deep line playmaker. We need some type of other playmaker when Maddison's not available, in my opinion. But yeah,
going back to bored of them always being kids, though? Like I feel like everyone we mention, we always say he's a good young player. If we're going to the Champions League, can't we just go and get 25, 26-year-olds, even 23, 24, who have got 5, 6 years underneath their belt? A Matoma, can't we go and a Matoma?
I know. I think that's in 80 mil. Mitoma's, I think, is quoted at 80 million for Mitoma.
No, so Mitoma, Ash, Sava, like anyone that's in that
Mitoma's at 50,
60, 70 million, isn't it? You can only get one of them, right?
You can only get one, yeah. Yeah, you can only get one.
They've said Mitoma's available at 45, 50 million euros.
Well, if that's the case, you get Mitoma. Like, that's a no-brainer. But
you get João Pedro, because he's apparently on Tottenham's radar. I know Newcastle are front and centre, but hang about, Pete. Pete coming in saying he's not pony. He's just not. He's a raw, rough diamond. He's got to be polished.
I think the issue is with some Spurs fans is that we've got Odobert already, and they're saying to have Odobert and Tell, and then get another young player. Like, make it make sense. Like, we need to slap some experience somewhere. And if we've got creative issues, why not put that in the wide area? Why not go big for like an Eze, for example, like we just said? The problem is you have to spend the bulk of your transfer fee on one player. And then I think loads of fans, and this is where I think the argument happens. It's like, where do we prioritize? Do we prioritize in the six? Or do we prioritize out wide? Or do we spread it? And that's the problem, because everyone's saying, don't spread your money, just buy big on one or two players. But that means you might go lighter on another position. So, for example, if we were to go and buy Eze, can we really get that special number 6 that was needed, that most fans want? I know we're moving towards a double pivot where you've got two central midfielders doing both defensive work and attacking work. So maybe there's less of a need of a well-experienced 6. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, listen, what Frank might turn Archie Gray into prime Colo.
Oh God! Here we go. Oh gosh!
I forgot you were there, Lubo. I didn't even see.
Colo Kante, couldn't he? Who knows? Listen, he wanted Gray a year ago. Spurs beat Brentford there. Who knows?
If Gray is our number 6 next season, we've got serious problems at Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, I completely agree. And
I don't want to see him in the first 11. I do not want to see this kid in the first 11.
Would you loan him out?
Yeah, I would. All day, every day. Get him 46 games a season in the Championship at a
top
club.
No, I would loan him to Brentford. Yeah,
but hang on. Why would Brentford want to bring in a 19-year-old that hasn't played centre mid for 2 seasons to be their main man?
Would you loan him to a Burnley, a Leeds, a Sheffield United, a team that's coming up?
I'll ask the question again. If you're
we've already seen that he can play Championship level football.
Yeah, but Sean, but the problem is, think about it from those clubs' point of view. We think about it from our point of view. If you are Burnley, Leeds, and Sheffield United, you're in a relegation battle, right?
Yeah.
You need the midfield. You need your middle two, your midfield 2 or 3, and your centre backs to be strong. Are you going to trial Archie Gray, who's never played central midfield in the Premier League? I mean, he's had, 3 starts in central midfield in the Premier League. Is that the guy you want in your relegation battle in midfield? I would be, if I was a club, I'd be really peeing off if that was my go.
I hear you, but we've already seen that this goes back to the Manor Solomon debate, funnily enough. Like, that he's good enough at the Championship level. He comes to the Premier League. At right back. I think he played half the season at right back, half the season. He played half the season at centre mid for Leeds, didn't he?
Sure. So half a season at centre mid, I can't imagine Premier League managers. Listen, they might bring him in and say we're going to rotate, but I think the whole point is now he's just had a whole Lubo knows my opinions on Gray. Gray's just had a whole year at Tottenham where he's not been developed in his own position. Like, he's had a whole year of filling in. And I'm not knocking him for that. That's not his fault. But as a midfielder, whenever he played in midfield, I thought he looked really, really painfully out of his depth. So for me, I would get him out on loan. I think it's going to be really difficult to get him game time because he's not a Premier League starter. He's not a Champions League starter. And then...
So then would you sell him then?
No, I'd have him out on loan. First of all, I'd bulk him up. He looks weak. He looks really weak.
I agree with that. Get him in the gym, 100%.
I'd try and get him to a club, whether it's bottom half of the Premier League, whether it's top half of the Championship. I'd get him out, bulk him up, try and get a contract with a club that says we guarantee he's going to get X amount of minutes, and let him come back a bit more of a man.
Send him back to Leeds, Ash, yeah?
But Leeds have got better midfielders than him. That's the problem. This is the problem, Ash. They've got better midfielders than Archie Gray. Who
have they got in midfield?
They've got, I can't even remember their names now. I was having a chat with a Leeds fan who was telling me yesterday the two names, completely forgotten. They were saying these boys, they're men. They said Gray was talented, but a kid. I just think he needs, I think he needs a loan somewhere. I think we went well early. Massive drain on transfer funds. Sean, we had this chat. If you buy a Gray, you buy him for 10 million. You don't pay 35, 40 million pounds for him. And I think he's a problem now. Not him. Sorry, not him. Let me just make that clear. Not he's the problem. I think we've created a problem because Berghvall, who was the same age as Gray when he came in, has positioned himself as he's the good young midfielder at Tottenham Hotspur. He's the one that's going to play. So I don't know what we do. I don't know what we're going to do.
I still think he goes on loan personally, unless Frank's got an idea for him. That's what I personally think. But yeah, going back to the wide position, someone mentioned it in the comments. There's a player called Igor Paxor, and he plays for, I think is it PSV? He's played in Champions League and he's Paschal. Sorry, yeah. He's played Champions League football and he's had 3 or 4 seasons in a top flight. Well, you'd say top flight division, but he's
an absolute fucking like muscle fucking. He's got
he's got size to him. He's got goals in him. He shoots from outside the box. He's got playing either wing, so that could be a player that could maybe satisfy some Spurs fans. Because the other players that we're talking about, like you said, we're gonna have to spend big unless we do the Grealish thing. I don't know what you guys think about that. A lot of people.
Well, let's talk about Jack Grealish because he is someone that Tottenham keep looking at. I don't want to touch him with like Lubo's barge pole, let alone mine or anyone else's. But he's not for me. I think he's past his best. I think he's put his feet up. I think once he won the Champions League, he sort of ticked every box, and I think he's earning a lot of money and he's a bit of a playboy. And good luck to him. But
this is so far from what he is. This is so far from what he is.
I knew it.
So far from what he is. Unfortunately, see, this is the thing. If you actually speak to people in circles of coaching that, they'll tell you Jack Grealish is not this character that the media are trying to make him out to be. Like he keeps getting called a drunk, a playboy, all of this. They said he's one of the hardest trainers, right? He is.
So why didn't Pep want him then?
Mate, Man City are evolving. You've got to remember, guys, this is the thing. Man City aren't Spurs. We keep a player and we want to play him every single week for every single year. We never want to sell them. Look how long we've had Ben Davies. Like, we don't want to move them on.
Don't you talk about my Ben Davies. Don't you dare talk about my Ben Davies.
You look at what Pep's done over the last 6 months to the year. You're starting to see now all of the older guard are now slowly starting to go. And all of the younger guard are coming in. The Bobs, the Dokus, the Savios, the Marmouches, the Nico Gonzalez, Ait Nouri, Ryan Cherky.
They're going for a rebuild for sure. Yeah.
They're going for a rebuild.
100%.
For me, listen, I think that sometimes we've got to remember who we are. I feel like we're 17th in the Premier League table with crap wingers like no offense.
For one off, mate. Let's not pretend like we're now 17th.
Hang on. No, but yeah, if you let me finish my sentence though, mate, we'll get there, right? It's all well and good saying it's a one-off, but all I see all year is how much we go, oh yeah, what can we do with this championship forward line we've got? Championship forward line, this winger's crap, that winger's crap. Then when we start talking about people like Jack Grealish, who are superior to anything we've got, we go, nah, not for me. We've got loads of fans going, Semenyo.
You like the comparison of, you say he's better than anything we've got, but his decline has been more of a fall off than Heung Min's son.
No, but hang on, when you say his decline has been more of a fall off, you've got to remember, Jack Grealish's game isn't the same as those players.
He's got 19 goals and 160 appearances.
Sean, let me finish. But again, see, Sean, again, you're falling into that trap. If all you care about is goals and assists, you're not done your homework on Jack Grealish.
Isn't that what you used to say to me all the time? Hang on a second. When I thought forwards were about putting the ball in the back of the net.
Hang on, but he's not a striker. Jack Grealish isn't a striker.
Yeah.
No, Jack Grealish has never been a proven. Jack Grealish's game has never been loads of goals, loads of assists. Look at the season when Man City won the treble. Jack Grealish played more than anyone else. And Pep Guardiola came out at the end of the season and said, my key player this year was Jack Grealish. He offers me what none of the others can do. And what Jack Grealish does is he gets the ball, right, drives you up the pitch, and he's got the ability that none of our wingers can do, just holding on to the ball, not losing it at the first time someone tries to tackle them. He retains possession. He draws fouls, gets his team up the pitch, wins loads of free kicks, and he has got brilliant hold-up and link-up play, right? You need a player like that. The problem is you're not going to have all three of your front line that all score loads of goals and assists. You very rarely get that in any team's front three. But what we haven't got is a single one of our forwards can't hold the ball up. We haven't got a single winger who's comfortable getting the ball with a couple of players around them and saying, you know what, I'm comfortable with this. Come and join in. And Jack Grealish does that. He's drawn more fouls than any other player in the Premier League for the last 3 years or 4 years. He's comfortable on the ball. His link-up is very good. In possession, he's very good. That's not the guy that I buy for, let's get loads and loads of goals, loads and loads of assists. I think he's a different footballer. And you need all sorts in your team. For me, I think he's a hugely talented player that's better than anything we've got. Anything we've got.
I think just for me. He's far behind him personally. Lubo, what's your say on Jack?
He hasn't played much this season, has he?
No.
Which is a concern. Listen, he's a talented player. I think again, it's really key what sort of budget Frank gets. To waste 35, 40 million on Tel if you've got a limited budget, because you don't know what players you're going to sell, because it's up, you've got to wait to see who comes in and what they're prepared to pay.
I fucking hope Matisse Tel goes on and proves everybody wrong, because I know that guy's a baller.
You know what, Sean?
He's
not a baller though.
He's waiting to emerge.
Do you know, Sean? I saw him for the French under-21s a few months ago, and he looked absolute mustard. So you can see there's a player there.
100% there is.
Right. If we had owners that didn't have a specific budget every single year for transfers, then okay, fair enough. You could say get Tel down to 25. He'd be one of 6 or 7 that we'd buy. But our owners don't behave like other football clubs, other top football clubs. So we have got a limited amount of money to spend. So do we need, you've just gone through 10 wingers that we've got. 11, do we need to commit 35, 40 million euros, whatever it comes to? They're only going to be able to get Bayern Munich down so far from 55. So how much do you spend on Tel, or do you say, do you know what? I'd rather have money for Eze, money for Semenya, maybe money for Branthwaite. You go and get 3 top players, maybe a Polinia, maybe go and get splash out, get 4, because you know you're going to get money back for some players, and then say, do you know what? I'm better off just getting 4 quality players, and all of a sudden the whole dynamic of the squad changes.
Yeah,
and you're looking at a much stronger.
You talked about raising money. Here's a direct quote from Heung Min's son, Heung Min Daddy. This is from Yonhap News, which I think is obviously probably Korean. Heung Min Son on rumours suggesting he might leave Tottenham. I still have 1 year left on the contract. This is a quote. I still have 1 more year left on the contract. Rather than saying anything at this moment, I think we should all wait and see what happens. But no matter where I end up, I will always do the best I can. It will never change. Sonny's off, isn't he?
Sounds it, doesn't it?
That sounds like that's Sonny's gone.
It's a little hint. He's opened the door, hasn't he?
That's not I've got 1 year left on my contract. I'm fully committed to Tottenham and I want to win again. That's the season's, the project's changing. I don't want to hang around to see how it's fun. I've only got, makes sense to me.
Lubo, can I just say from your point of view, this is what I don't get. I feel like we're falling into that trap again of we see something in a player rather than can we actually just go out and get someone that we don't need to see something in that we know that they're good. And if we've got, I mean, Lubo, look at Ash is just sitting there already reeling off players that are performing well in Europe's leagues, right? If you watch every league across the world for 35, 40 million, Hell's nowhere near most of these wingers that you watch play week in, week out. Like he might be good in 2-3 years, but if we keep doing that, then what I don't want to hear from everybody is, but then the manager wasn't backed. I've just given you 4 established players that I feel will change the whole dynamic of the team. I agree. Lubo, I agree with you. I agree with you.
We have got so many good kids. We got more good kids than we know what to do with at the moment.
Yeah.
So let's bring in we need established players. We had a squad that played that played 20 games more. We had, instead of playing 41 last season, we played 61. So 50% increase. And we had less established players for 50% more. We had the same sort of injuries. I mean, the squad was decimated. We were short of top established players. We were short of top leaders. Frank will have seen this. The whole world saw it. So for me, go and get. Are we
guilty though, Lubo? Just quickly, are we guilty of like judging? When I look at Matisse Tell, he didn't play that many minutes in Europa League. When he did, I thought he did very well. In the Premier League, he came into a team that by the kind of Monday morning quarterback analysis of Ange Postecoglou that was deprioritizing the Premier League. And he was the only guy that was putting in a shift. Most of the reason why I have this love for Matisse Tell, well, not love, there's most of this faith in him, is because nobody else gave a flying fuck in the games against West Ham, in the games against Crystal Palace, in the games against 8 of the teams that you played since February. And I just feel, what, I'll ask you, Lubo, I'll bring up actually, because I haven't heard Ash's take on Matisse Tell. I want to get yours as well, mate. I just feel like, if you're judging him on his output, fair enough. But are we missing the, and I hear the point as well about, Sab, I completely hear you about like, you're paying good money for potential. Are we still in that stage or should we now be, I hear you, Sab. I think it's a very relevant point.
I don't know what he's good at.
Yeah, but my
eyes and the stats don't lie. He's not good at anything.
Well, the stats, you're right, and my eye are different on that one. The stats, I completely agree. There's no argument about it. But I think the context is that he's the only geezer that was putting any shift in a team that wasn't, and from a manager that retrospectively said was deprioritizing the thing that he was given the minutes in. How difficult is it going to be able to... what else can you show in a team that is... like, if 10 men don't give a shit and 1 man does... How else, how else can you prove your worth unless you have the ability to do worldies every game, which he's not Messi, no one is. So is that not a fair consideration?
The problem with Ange and his lack of coaching is that it's unfair to make any sort of judgment on most of the players. Berghvall, we can see, came through. You can see that regardless of what happened with Ange. But, you look at players like Bissouma, Bentancur, Sarr, who for me underperformed. Is it fair to judge them 100% because of the system we played? Porro for sure is not a fullback in any universe. We were talking about a deep lying player who can create. Look at those passes look at that ball Porro put through from Maddison. Was it against Frankfurt? And we've forgotten about Porro because people have talked about Porro being a wing back if Frank plays 3 at the back. But Porro can also play spray balls from anywhere in the pitch. Technically, he is superb. His passing is excellent. His crossing is spot on. And I think we're missing a trick with Porro, personally, as a midfield player.
So I think there's an issue, right? Because I think with some people, they think that if you spend 30 to 40 million on Tel, it will affect the budget. But there's another side of things where some people might think that Tel is separate money, is actually the K money. So the K
Still
money
comes off the P&L, Ash. That's not how it works. That's just not how it works. It's not separate money. That's still our budget. That's still money that Bayern Munich would have been coming into the club. That's not how it works.
So okay, cool. So thanks for correcting me. So then that means then that money, that K money that we haven't technically spent because it's amortized, right? That K money, then we can put that towards this budget. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no. If Bayern Munich owe us money, that money, whatever the agreement is, if it's still to pay us in 1 payment, in 2 payments, in 3 payments, whatever it is, will still be used by. Again, I don't want to get into an accountancy conversation. I'll leave that for Sean.
Make it simple.
If the money's coming in, whether it's 1 more payment, 2 more payments, 3 more payments, the Tottenham Hotspur hierarchy, whoever's the CFO or whoever, is looking at the spreadsheets, going, okay, well, we've got X amount of money coming here from Bayern, so that money can be used here, there. If we're just going to go, right, well, we're going to write off what Bayern Munich owe us for Kane, and it's going to pay outright for Matisse Tel, then that money comes off the future forecasting for where that money would have been coming in. So it won't affect us in this window, but it will affect us moving down the line. I might have that. I'm pretty sure Lugo and Sean might be able to correct me, but that money would be coming in.
Well, if you've if you're owed 40 million for 4 years, then they've budgeted, so for argument's sake, keep it simple, 10 million each year is coming in from Bayern that will be part of the transfer budget. That's it. This way, if they say Tel, you wipe out 40 million in one hit, then 10 million comes off this year, next year, and for the following years. So that's it. It's done. It's, books closed, basically.
So go on, sorry. I was going to say, I think the argument then is Tel good enough for now? Is Tel good enough to make an impact in the squad, in the Premier League or in the Champions League? Is he at that level? Is he ready now? Because I feel like some people might think he's a player with loads of potential. If we lose him, then he's going to explode somewhere else, and we don't want that. And we can see the makeup of this guy, especially in the under 21s, which is a different level, but still he's playing alongside players that have done well. You've got Ekatike, he's played in the under 21s. You've got obviously Odegaard that we have. There's other French talents. Cherokee used to be in the under 21s with them as well. I mean, how good he is. Well, we've seen what he's done. But I think from what I observed at him when he was at Bayern Munich, when I did see him in a Spurs shirt, I was like, it marries up now. Look. But again, I hear what Ian's point is in terms of like Postecoglou playing as a number 9. I don't think he's a number 9. And the first few games, he was deployed there. And I think it really showed his weaknesses, which were his physicality. So in the number 9, in terms of holding up that play, he wasn't able to facilitate that role. He wasn't able to do it well. And then when he was moved out wide, I still felt like his link-up play wasn't good enough to allow Spurs to move up the pitch, where you need your wide players to be good on the ball or have the IQ when to hold, when to pass, or when to go on the outside, etc. So that's my problem with Tel in that particular position. Go on.
Can I ask you? So if you bring in Tel, and again, if we bring in Tel and we don't bring in another winger, your wingers are now Tel, Yang, Moore, Odegaard, and Johnson, right? So we're basically exactly where we were last season. Like you've got, there's no improvement from Europa League to Champions League in terms of quality of player. My big question is this, though. Let's assume, like Sean's just said from the quote from Son, let's assume Son isn't there. Who
Sounds
is
like he
Tell
is, right?
learn?
Sounds like he's
Who are Tell and Odegaard learning off? Like, if they are our wingers, where's the senior wingers that they are actually learning from? Like,
Is that why? Just quickly, Tab. Sorry to interject, but is that why apparently Thomas Frank's bringing 6 back? I think Ashley mentioned it at the start. I think he's bringing 6 backroom staff with him. You'd hope that there's one of those coaches is going to be a take-on guy, or at least some sort of forward play coach, right?
Possibly, Sean. But again, I still feel that you need. You know, you watch these documentaries about football clubs and that, and the younger players, they're watching. Go and watch that guy play. Study him, watch how he plays, develop. And again, this is what I said about Lubo. We've had this chat about Gray all year. It's all well and good saying Gray's a 6. He's got no one to learn off. We haven't got a number 6 at the football club for Gray to learn off. At the moment, if Sonny goes, and even this Sonny isn't the Sonny that I think everyone knows and loves from years gone by, there isn't a top winger from Odegaard, Tell, Moore, and Yang to learn off. So for me, I would say that could Matisse Tell be a very good player in 2-3 years? Sure. If he was that good, I don't think that every year Bayern Munich would keep buying wingers to replace him. If you look in the last few years, all that, by the way, Bayern Munich's number 1 targets, they've said this year, are Nico Williams, right? Nico Williams, Matoma, and Bradley Barcola from PSG. Last year, they went and bought Elise, who can play out there, right? They bought in... They've got Musiala, who can play out there. They've got Gnabry, who can play out there. This guy, for me, is being moved on for a reason. I don't think he's developed as much as they need. And I think if we didn't have many young wingers, I'll ask you this, Sean. If Tottenham's wingers right now, if we said we've got Matoma on the left and you've got Mbeumo on the right, and you said to me, Tell is going to be the understudy to one of them, I'm all for it. But at the moment, what we're talking about is these are going to be our first team wingers.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Listen, mate, I'm not saying it. Me, you know? I don't think we're far apart. Like, I'd be just making the claim that I think the Matisse Tell is. I think there's a baller in there. I don't know why. I can't justify other. I know it's a lazy argument or a shit argument to make, but I think that I just trust my gut, and I think that there's a massive player in there, especially when I see the work ethic and the involvement and the effort that he's put in to try to prove his point. Dare I say the phrase "fully coys." Right in the end to that season when nobody else gave a shit in the Premier League, and that to me, if you're going to hold him accountable for not putting in the numbers when nobody else gave a fuck, then what you're expecting from the guy is Messi-esque. I'll do it by myself magic, and he's 19 years old. I'm okay if we don't go in. I'm not going to sit there and say we should have signed Tell. I'm not going to be that sort of guy, but I think that, and I hear you by the way on the argument on who's the champion winger. And I also hear the argument around there's 30 million quid that can be spent elsewhere. And, Tottenham need to bring in some ready now, here now players right now. So I'm more than happy if we go in a different direction. But I personally disagree with this argument that Tell is shit. I'm just like, I don't think he is. I think.
Do we look at it? Do we look at it and just say, Levy's looking to utilise the money that's owed by Bayern for Kane? Do we not look at it and say, what do we need? Is there anyone at Bayern?
Oh, for sure. Polinia. For sure.
And you start with Polinia, and if you can't get Polinia, what about using the Kane money to get Kane?
Yeah, well, yeah.
I knew you were going down that road.
We're finally going to replace Harry Kane
with Harry Kane. Listen, Sean, we replaced Bale with Bale. We replaced Ericsson with Ericsson. So
that's true. Hey guys, I've got 5 minutes left before we're going to hand over. There's been 1,650 people here the whole show. Absolutely insane. I forgot to ask. Please smash the like button. I've been pumping out the links for Ash's channel and for Sabba's. I'll pump them in again. Also, Lubo on Twitter. Please make sure you sort of get over to them. In about four minutes' time, we're going to take you straight across to Football Inc., where if you are interested in more of a sort of deadline day football roundup around things that may include Tottenham, but are probably going to include more like Chelsea and what's happening with Mike Maignan, and there's a lot of Saudi disappointment. Saudi don't seem to be able to grab anyone right now. It's fascinating. So come over there and hear all about that. But I do want to get some roundup points from you guys. Who do you think is going to be Tottenham's first player signing this summer? And what do you expect? And do you think the Tottenham fan base will be okay with it? Ash, I'll start with you, mate.
Yeah, Tell will be the first signing. Tell will definitely be the first signing, in my opinion. I think. And so Danso, I don't know if that's like the first time.
Danso's obviously done.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of like a new face around the houses.
Oh, so Tell's not allowed then, or
just to keep it interesting, let's ignore Tell as well because no one's ever excited by a permanent signing of a loan, are they? We've already tied before we buy. Let's experiment with someone new. If not Tell, not Danzo, a new name that isn't currently at the club.
Jeez, that's a tough one, man. Because we're linked to so many players, but I don't know if there's any truth to it. Because the way Lang moves in silence, he doesn't move like Paratici. Do you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, Paratici's not here for a couple of weeks.
I'll say our first signing will be Semenyo, and then it's
you know what? Not a name, a position. How about a position?
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna go for that wide player, man. I'm gonna say actually no, midfield. I'm gonna say midfield. I'm gonna say the central midfield.
And who would you like it to be?
We're gonna get I think we'll get a Hayden Hackney kind of player.
Okay.
In that midfield, like box to box / kind of central midfielder that can do it all. Hard working, that kind of.
Would you be happy with Hayden Hackney?
I wouldn't be wild about it because I haven't seen him.
What would be your ideal, realistic signing in that role? Then doesn't have to be what you think will happen, but what would you like to see us get in that spot?
I would love Belieber, but I don't think that's realistic. I would love a Belieber in that position. I think we're closer to getting the Frank Froholt from.
He looks good to me, by the way, bro. He looks really good in the white. I like him a lot.
So I think
he's not going to satisfy anybody. He's going to
everyone. No, he won't. He won't.
Going to go 10 million, fair enough, but not 40 million.
Scandinavian market, I could see that happening unless we went to like a player like Sander Berger, who's a lot more experienced, played for Fulham, took over Paulinho's role, plays in the DM. Really tidy in the ball, was underrated at Burnley in my opinion. He's a player that could probably fit in that kind of Thomas Frank role where he would sit alongside either Berghvall or Bentancur as a midfield too. But there's loads of players I like, but are they attainable? It's another question. Do you know what I mean?
We'll be here, mate, to figure it out, mate, and over on Spurs Kings TV. Anything coming up? When's your next show on Spurs Kings, mate?
So like I said at the start, the main thing we're looking at is the award ceremony.
That's not until the 7th of July, you said, right? Or 5th of July? Or
5th of July. Yeah, that's going to be because we're taking a little semester. We're taking a little short break, siesta. Yeah. So that's our next big show that we're going to be doing. But in between then, we're just about, we're just floating around.
It's hiding, Ash.
Yeah, we're going into hiding, man. I'm not even meant to be here.
Fair enough. I appreciate you coming on, buddy. You've been absolutely sensational, mate. I hope people are going to respect that and smash that link. There it is, guys. Just click the link in the comment section. Go over to Spurs Kings TV. Wonderful people, wonderful chat. I absolutely love you.
Sorry. Before I go, I do like one midfielder. His name's Timber, but not the one
not Julian. The other one, Quentin.
Quentin Timber. He's a player.
You can quench my thirst for a midfielder. Good player. Yeah. Cheers, Ash, mate. I appreciate you, buddy. Lubo, same question to you, mate. Who's your first signing?
Tell you what I'd like to see. You've got to sell the club to players. So the first transfer you get in is Eze. You make a statement to start. You say, bang, there you go. Then you'd show other players that you're serious. It'd be a big help.
Love that, mate. Guys, Ian is at Lubo_61. I put it in the chat. I'll put it again. I'll drop all these links in the description as well. If you're watching this after the fact, then make sure you get down and show your support. Thank you, Ian, mate. Appreciate you, buddy. We'll get you on tomorrow or before the end of the week for sure. Saba, what's coming up on Football Heritage TV? A show tonight at 8 p.m, I believe. What's going on there? And also, who's your number one first signing wishes?
First of all, I completely agree with Lubo. My heart says Eze or Heung Min of Sporting Lisbon, Danish, holding midfielder. My heart says that. My head says that it's going to be someone like Carl Walker-Peters on a free, and the fan base will go into absolute meltdown. I do. I think it will look like. I mean, we've got Danso in, right? Danso, Tell, and Walker-Peters will be the first three through the door. But I'd love Heung Min or Frendrup. I like Frendrup from Genoa as well. Another Danish sort of defensive midfielder, can also play at fullback. So listen, Sean, there's players out there, mate. There's players out there aplenty, and I just hope we don't have another window like last summer. We've got to see better quality than that come in from last summer.
Completely agree. Do you know what, Lubo? I know you're always asking, when are you going to go Levy out? When are you going to go Levy out? Last summer, I disappeared around this time because I realized I was being hacked, and I basically vanished for like 9 months. Had I been around to do content during that last summer's transfer window, you might have seen my hand forced. But the fact that I was invisible for like 9 months, I avoided the initial Levy out temptation, mate. I avoided it. We shall see.
Sean, you're getting there, mate. You're getting there. Don't worry.
We'll see. Mate, let's say I'm one of 50 people that have been to all 3 Change for Tottenham protests. You never take that away from me, mate. Guys, I want to say massive thank you to all 3 of the content creators and to Johnny H, who disappeared. He and I are going straight over right now. So there's still 1,400 people here. If you're interested in the next phase of content, we're going to go over to Football Inc. And we'll see you over there in a second. Stay where you are. We'll redirect you straight over, and we'll get going in 30 seconds time. Sava, Lubo, Ash, absolute legends, mate. Thanks for coming on, boys. Get over to Sava's tonight at 8 p.m. and at 9 p.m. if you're interested. There's a fan show, so all the members that are on the Spurs Talk Show, you can jump in and have your say. Tell me why I'm a donut. But until then, see you all. Thanks, boys. Appreciate you all. Love you all. Take care. Bye bye.
Cheers.